What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Mohawk Motors. My name is Jason. So today, it's time to get started on the transmission for the ASSBLAZER. The transmission currently in it is getting worse and worse. I think I'm down to only first and third gear now. So I want to get the transmission put together for it so I can get the new drivetrain swapped into it. So I've got my two 4L60, well, correction. I've got one 4L60 and one 4L65 out of some donor vehicles that I parted out. And we're gonna use these to hopefully come up with a 4L60/65E hybrid that will handle the power from that LS1. Let's get to work taking these things apart. Okay, so before I get too far into this, let me explain to you what I have here. This transmission is out of a 2003 Trailblazer Extended that had a 5.3 V8. It's essentially the exact same transmission that is in the ASSBLAZER right now. This transmission is a 4L65E. This one is out of a 2002 Cadillac Escalade that had a 6-liter LQ4 in it. Now, I've already noticed a problem with the 4L60E from the Trailblazer that I'm going to show you in a minute, which is why I knew I was going to need a parts transmission, a donor transmission for sure. But there's also some better parts in this 4L65E that I'm going to steal as well, just to make my transmission a little bit stronger. I'll show you those when I get there. Externally, these transmissions are exactly the same. I've already taken the heat shield and some of the other stuff off of this Cadillac transmission. You can see the exhaust heat shield is still on the one from the Trailblazer. Some of the wire brackets and the park neutral switches are still on both. Now, the one difference is the one from the Escalade has the round 6-bolt transfer case pattern. The one on the Trailblazer transmission has a kind of, I would call it a pentagon-shaped 5-bolt transfer case pattern. The Trailblazer transmissions are unique. They have that mounting pattern because there isn't enough clearance in the transmission tunnel to use the round pattern transfer cases. The Trailblazer transfer cases are a little smaller. They're shaped a little bit differently to clear the floor pan, essentially. I'm gonna get the bell housings taken off, the transfer case adapters taken off, and everything stripped off the outsides of them so that I don't have to move as much bulky stuff around while I'm working on these. I'm gonna tear down the transmission from the Trailblazer first because that's the case that I plan to reuse, and that's also, it should be exactly the same on the inside, so I'll be able to make sure that gives me the best chance of making sure when it goes back together it's right, it's gonna work, I don't make any errors. Now let me show you what I saw was wrong with that transmission right out of the gate. So I knew that I was going to need a parts donor, a core transmission, just something to get some good parts out of. See right at the tip of my finger here, how you can see that little bit of shine towards the camera lens. And then back here at the stator support also, see that little bit of shine right at the tip of my finger. Now that is actually a shoulder on those splines in both positions. And that light actually shows it a little better. Now that's where those shaft, this is the input shaft, that's where it splines into the torque converter. This is the stator support, also where it splines into the torque converter. But those are worn. I mean, that input shaft, that's pretty substantial wear. I mean, it's worn away half of the splines. So I know I can't use those. The splines on the stator support and the input shaft from the Denali or the Escalade transmission look just fine. I don't see any visible wear at all on these. So these are going to be the input shaft and stator support. I'll honestly probably use the entire pump from the Escalade transmission. But as soon as I pulled the torque converter off, I could see that, and that's a serious problem. I mean, those parts are junk. Those cannot be used. But I have plenty of donors around. And like I said, I want to steal some other parts out of this 4L65 anyway. And the input shaft and the stator support looks good, so it's going to donate those as well. Valve body off, no surprises, nothing I didn't expect to see there. Flipped it up, got the pump off, so I don't see anything terribly wrong, but like I said before, the stator support is damaged, the splines are messed up, so I'm not going to be using this pump. If the other pump is bad, I might see if this one is any better on the inside, but more than likely I'm not going to be using it. Alright, so I've got the Trailblazer transmission apart. Sprayed it off with brake clean just to get the bulk of the oil off of it. The only real issues I found is the one clutch pack is blackened, so it's definitely been hot. The band has been dragging on the drum. That's been hot. I think the drum is going to be okay. I'll be able to use that. The messed up splines on the input shaft like I showed earlier, and the messed up splines on the stator support shaft like I showed earlier. I think most of the rest of that I want to reuse, I'll be able to reuse, which is great. So I'm going to sit this case aside and then get this other 4L65E apart and start checking it out and see if it has the parts that I think it has in it that I want, and also get a couple of replacement parts that I need. All right. So I've got the 4L65E taken apart now. I didn't bother going into as much detail on the disassembly on this and taking apart all the clutch packs because I don't need to. I don't need any of those parts right now. I'll probably just put them in a tote bin and save them for later. But the parts that I did need and want were there, and they do look like they're in good usable condition. So the biggest thing that I wanted to get, the pump with the good stator support. I haven't split it yet to check the vanes and everything else inside, but these pumps are rebuildable. So assuming the housing isn't messed up, I should be just fine there. I will take it apart before I put my parts order in to be sure, but I'm pretty confident that pump is going to be just fine. The input shaft is in good condition. It's not scored or rubbed or anything like that, so it's all set to go. The biggest thing, and this is what I wanted, I didn't need these, but the 4L65 comes with 5 pinion planetary gears. The 4L60 just has 4 pinion planetary gears. The ratios are the same. There's just one more pinion gear in each planetary gear set. The front gear set and the rear gear set are both 5 pinion planetaries. Did I need them? No. Are the planetary gear sets the point that's going to fail? Very unlikely. Even with the 4 pinion gear set, that's probably one of the last things that I would have had issues with. But I needed to take this transmission apart anyway to get the input shaft and the pump out of it. So I figured, hey, what the heck? I might as well get those 5 pinion planetary sets out of it and use those also. Now, interestingly, there's something else in this 4L65 that is right on the verge of failure. It didn't fail yet, but it's a common failure point in these. And that is the sun gear shell. Now, as you can see, the sun gear is still in this one. I pulled on it, it's tight, it doesn't come out. And the reason behind that is it has started to slip on the splines. And it's actually turned to the point that it's literally like the splines are point to point on each other. So it wasn't going to be much longer until that sun gear shell failed altogether. And, you know, once a hard part like that fails, it usually sends metal all through the transmission and more or less trashes a lot of the parts inside of it. So I got this one just in time from the looks of things. I'm going to finish tearing everything down. I'm going to make up a parts list. I'll order parts, hopefully have them in a week or so, and then get this thing put together.
The next day.
All right, everybody. Well, I've been inspecting and cleaning and checking parts out. I got the pieces of pump picked out that are the best. Basically, I'm going to be using the pump housing from the 4L60 and the stator support from the 4L65. I've got the 5 pinion planetary gear sets from the 4L65. What else? The drum from the 4L65 was in better condition. And it's really, I mean, there was some staining on the surface, but otherwise it's pretty much perfect. The input shaft assembly from the 4L65 and the servo from the 4L60, although most of this is going to get replaced with a Corvette servo. And the case from the 4L60. I have a new sun gear shell coming. It's an upgraded sun gear shell because that's a known weak link like I already showed you. Let's see. Some servo pistons, accumulator pistons, shift kit, all new clutches and steels, a Z-pack. What am I forgetting? An extra wide heavy duty band, bunch of parts. I've got a whole bunch of stuff coming. Hopefully it'll be here in the next week or so, but Getting this thing put back together and upgraded is going to be a separate video. That's it for this video. You know, 2 working transmissions, no major failures, although a couple impending failures that we found. And really, I can't complain, not too difficult. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And until the next video, everybody, take care.